Life is an upside-down pendulum. When enticed by career or education development, when overstimulated by the challenges such pertains, it is easy to drift our eyes away from the ball and overlook ourselves. But what good is achieving this abstraction of moving forward in life if at the expense of a healthy lifestyle anyway? Without that, there's no such thing as progress. For the sake of illustration, let's envision this lifestyle as a tree. After all, we are not too dissimilar to them. We are among many. We are all unique. We thrive in habitable environments when aptly self-regulated and nurtured. Our wellness is defined by a collection of ever-developing and blossoming habits regarding several branching concepts of self-care, fulfillment, maintenance, and so on. Every branch of wellness is as essential an extension as any other, and each habit, like a leaf, root, needle, or perhaps flower, fruit, is how those branches interact with our environment, designed to most efficiently compile and circulate what available wealth abounds. Everything connects at the xylem, our very core, grounding us in our foundational goal, the promotion of wellness in all aspects of ourselves. Trees call their primary vocation photosynthesis. Maybe you call it enlightenment. Since the COVID-19 pandemic and my post-secondary life coincided at their dawn, I've had the impetus and free time to elaborate how I envision and enact wellness. I stand mere steps away from my 20th ring's entrance, looking forward at my third decade's mystery and back at what sapling I've gradually matured from. I can barely leave my room anymore, let alone my house, without brushing my hair, brushing my teeth. Some deeply embedded shard of my soul begins to itch when my scalp is too oily or my skin is too dry. Maybe I've left my deodorant untouched in the morning a couple of times this week. I should probably put it somewhere a little bit more eye-catching, but by any means, the roots of ideal wellness sprawl into a rabbit hole much deeper than daily hygiene. Remember, wellness is a vast, sprawling tree, a network of branches. When I imagine my physical, social, spiritual, emotional, and intellectual needs as separate but connected phenomena, I can ensure the correct amount of effort is put into each. Neglecting a branch, any branch, is nothing more than neglecting a vital piece of ourselves. And the job is never finished either, right? Every tree gets bigger, sprouts new branches, adapts and renews its appendages seasonally, absorbing ever more light. With bodies and spirits as complex as ours, the pursuit of well-being is our life's journey. There is no destination in which some perfection is achieved and maintenance is no longer required. Steadfast dedication to improvement is all that we are, the commitment for a tomorrow that is better than today, that is better than yesterday. As a young, full-time apprentice and trade student at SAIT, my day-to-day is one of persistent physical performance. Upon investigation of the physical branch of wellness, you'll find the twig of moderate exercise follows, upon which others may develop some perennial activity regimen. I enjoy the privilege of these needs automatic maintenance through mere habitual punctuality at my job. I walk around, lift and transport heavy goods, and promote methods for completing repetitive tasks safely, efficiently, and precisely. With heightened physical activity comes the need for heightened intentionality and physical wellness as adjacent twigs. I am accordingly more prone to muscle strains, joint and nerve damage, and malnutrition. Self-care often means sacrificing short-term convenience to ensure long-term welfare. Recently, I've invested in preventative care. I've met with massage therapists and physiotherapists. I stay in touch with my doctor even when I don't need to. I've purchased back and wrist supports. These cautions and concessions may deduct from my cherished free time or bank account balance, but they mean I can fulfill my duties today while looking forward to a future of continued health throughout my adulthood. Despite what pressure, be it external or internal, seeks to tap you of your produce to maximize your output until your veins run dry, preventative care is crucial to maintain on a habitual and continuous basis. I pause from my duties on the job often to give my body the rest or preparation it deserves. This means stretching high traffic muscle groups anteceding or during tasks, swapping to secondary tasks for relief from over repetitive motion. Sometimes it's worth it to just take a breather, give my eyes a break, and go refill my water bottle. The contrast between the setting and the narrative here is intentional, by the way, or else this would be indistinguishable from an occupational health and safety PSA. Accountability for on-clock wellness extends into the after hours too. It's my responsibility to arrive in the morning energized and fit for duty. Coffee usually helps bridge the gaps, but there's no shortcut for a good night's sleep preceded by a nutrient-rich evening meal. Ideally, I've had a morning snack too. Our body is little but a giant complex chemical reaction, which apart from a steady intake of oxygen, what foodstuff we consume comprises a near monopoly of all input. You are what you eat, the maxim decries, and input moderated in size and balanced in kind is an anchor upon which everything else follows. I thank my culinary education for illustrating the negative outcomes of underintentionality and hyperintentionality alike in the field of nutrition. It is an asset to understand astutely the functions of several macro and micronutrients, their respective sources and symptoms of their imbalance. However, it is almost as unhelpful as the lack of this knowledge to prioritize it over every facet of thought. Have I eaten the precise number of daily suggested milligrams of calcium or whatever? Of something so inherently variable, person by person, day by day, what matters more is intuition, developing an automatic sense of equilibrium between your activity and consumption, gently adapting behaviors accordingly. As trivial as that sounds on paper, a non-trivial degree of mental fortitude is a prerequisite, especially as interlocked with nutrition as mental wellness is, by any means, be it purely biological or furthermore what psychological self-image deprecation results. It takes a mental toll feeling at the whims of one's body rather than vice versa. It took years of habit development before meaningful progress materialized, but now that I know what works for me, maintenance is almost a reflexive process. In the year after high school, most of my time was spent inside at my desk. I studied French, watched movies, and played video games. I wrote about video games, upheld my love for literature, politics, math, and culinary arts. Akin to a deciduous tree preparing for the winter, diffusing its leaves, my adaptation to eat less in a time of physical dormancy was not one of calculation, but rather of logical consequence, the natural shedding of old habits from listening to and acting upon my body's needs. When I did return to activity in the form of a full-time job, for a time, I subscribed to a delivery meal planning kit. I needed to eat every day, and for the first time in a while, I needed to do it without access to my home kitchen. A steady flow of new ideas and techniques eased my mind in the transition to cooking routinely, and nowadays, the training wheels are off, the landing gears are retracted, my skills are developed enough to pilot a semi-consistent regiment of satisfying meals. I'm my household's grocery delegate, and I've learned that the junk food aisle is always on sale. As before, shortcuts and cheaper options may appease short-term financial goals or time management, and responsibility becomes only more difficult in a greed-based stagflating economy, yet I am dedicated to ensuring my family and I are well-nurtured, investing in balanced and diverse nutrition. And maintaining a complex diet means enablement of recreation for when the day-to-day is simply insufficient. Such is a privileged pastime of Calgary, our proximity to the Rockies. Canada's most acclaimed panoramas exist just outside my doorstep, if only slightly obfuscated by what prerequisite agility and stamina. Therein exists the opportunity to immerse in the humble beauty of the planet we call home. Acknowledge your status as a mere shrub of that which is incomprehensibly greater. Disconnect from the noise of our metropolitan individual responsibilities and focus only on each step followed by another and another. In the pursuit of spiritual wellness, you must realize that in our ever-accelerating world, the path is often not that of least resistance. Yet, like moths to a flame, we climb closer to our source, our enlightenment, spreading our branches, budding our leaves, if only for another square inch of sun. If you look at satellite imagery, you'll find only the most dedicated trees. Fewer and fewer as you get higher grow atop mountain summits. I'm proud to have become one of them. This year especially, I've endured several ever more challenging outings alongside friends, be they longtime or newfound, acquaintances and mutual contacts, strangers that become familiar, all conversing our strifes and strives and strides. We're all drawn there for the same reason. The act of mountaineering is a synecdochical emblem for the triumph over all struggles. It's the physical analog to what exists in any of other wellness's branches, surmounting, as it's called. The path to wellness is carved in the thickets of innumerable failures. Every tree stands among its fallen limbs, decayed and pruned in their insufficiency. Their remaining nutrients deposit into the soil. We internalize the lessons of what we overcome. Before I had the job I do now, I braved a 3-month probation period of 12-hour workdays saturated with what I later learned was called bullying and harassment. I like recalling pictures from then. They help to describe the situation. I was recovering from one unhealthy relationship just to step into what felt like the rake left out in the garden. Family members were suffering from chronic illnesses, and none of it was the pandemic's fault. It just wrote my problems in 72-point bold underscored and highlighted impact font, robbing me of what novel real-world interaction used to be the backdrop for it all. It all seems so tiny now. Like looking back at the parking lot upon the car I came out of. Something of a gondola ride it's been too, having thankfully felt inspired enough around a year ago to pick up the phone and tell my doctor I need therapy. I still go monthly. It's not like I can meaningfully say I'm good now, I'm just better. It's not possible anyway to reach life's summit, merely elevated I am from the past in the garden of the present. Analogous to the earlier described, the climb here was one of immersion, acknowledgement, disconnect, and focus on each and every step. Steps in developing healthier mental habits often coincide or maybe derive from physical ones. Don't lose sight though, not every step has to be that of a big and planned weekend road trip. Trails and summits are but an extremity of sidewalks and local parks. I've got a little happy spot just a couple blocks away that I used to frequent before my schedule was filled with equally therapeutic social outings. It reminds me of where I come from. It's got a great view of the skyline that symbolizes home. It's just across the street from my elementary school. It's even got a swing set. I remember the December night about a year ago when I sat here, writing in my notebook until the sun was long gone and my fingers turned cold. It said, "My 2022 will be a year of self-discipline, gratitude, and clarity." You can find the echoes in an Instagram post of me with a cat owned by this boy I had a crush on. Remember that rake? Some would love nothing more than to pluck you of your leaves prematurely just for the pleasure to collect them up and revel in them. In a way, I'm kind of grateful for those who have hurt me, for inspiring me to define boundaries, for it's the experience of illness that allows me to profoundly cherish health now. I remember the night I went to my happy place in March, of which the notebook entry read something like, "From him, I can walk away, all will be okay, and self-applied shame will be all that remains." I sat there perfectly static under the stars, staring at the Calgary skyline lit with its nighttime opalescence, just trying to feel okay for so long that I kid you not, the personification of Calgary manifested out for a walk with his dog and said, "Howdy, partner. I thought you was some kind of new art installation or something." Now, I'm no religious person. I'm sure that guy enjoys a life independent from the symbolism I prescribe, but that night, he was my guardian angel. The world is so much bigger than the battles we fight with ourselves. We're not alone, and we don't have to fight alone. Cooperation is so core to what makes humans successful as a species. Assessing faces and reading body language is baked into our evolution. Spoken language, written language is little more than a vessel for socialization. I imagine my social branch is among the thickest and most important, connecting to my trunk maybe at its principal split. When I look back upon the last year's inflection points, they are all the moments I took a long-term break from my usual responsibilities to focus on social development. My social life has never become dull per se, but in the era of the pandemic, it was all online. It was all commutable. But when you've scheduled time off work to fly away from home, away from family, for the first time toward new horizons, for the first time looking at the bodies of the voices you met on Discord, you can't click leave call. You can't say GG, TTYL, I need to get back to my real life. There's no microphone. For the first time, the time you spend with those you love is your real life. A new leaf blooms, a new light shines, and this connection begins to grow. By osmosis, you ascertain body language, you gesticulate more when you speak with a voice of intent and compassion, you give the weights on your shoulders a name and a breadth. You get so used to introducing yourself to new people, it's as if you finally introduced yourself to yourself. How else are we to understand the shape of our piece in this vast, ever-changing jigsaw canopy of a world than investigating our fit to those closest to us? Only recently have I felt that Twitter bio level of confidence for more true-to-self labels. I used to say something like, obviously, I'm queer, but I don't really know what kinds. If not for the support of my like-feathered birds, I may have never cared to develop any more than that. I know I still don't make a whole lot of sense to other people, but at least I make more sense to me, and in so many more profound areas of identity than gender and orientation. The last year or so has been an across-the-board journey in relearning what I find important, what my goals are, and how I work best to realize them. It's been incredibly rewarding to double down on relationships that reflect that, doubling down on people walking compatible journeys to mine, sufficiently overlapping for collaboration, yet diverging enough to stimulate growth and perspective. Like trees to a grove exchanging their nutrients underground. My girlfriend Mabel and I met on shared interests in music, cinema, and literature. We understand each other's absurdist and abstract forms of communication.
Now run at the camera.
As artists, we understand each other's impulse to create that which we can take pride in. While I was on creative hiatus, striving for academic perfection and professional development, she was busy maturing her brand, releasing album after album of ever more elaborate and authentic music. In this regard, we strengthen each other via our difference in experience, and we unite in our ambitions. She's been behind the camera for parts of this essay, literally and figuratively.
What just happened?
With her support, we've worked to overcome my creative anxiety. I don't feel like the world is ending so much anymore when I don't write enough words today. With my support, we've standardized her schedule and landed her a stable job. Hopefully soon we'll share our collaborative short films and music with the world. I know that already detectable in our individual efforts is the newfound maturity and self-image a true companion affords. Ultimately, while others can listen to my struggles, they can provide input, only I can synthesize the output. It's all for nothing without my discipline and initiative in allotting the time and developing the habits needed to fulfill my responsibilities. The tragedy of my life now is that a day only has 24 hours. You may have noticed the low-budget, cobbled-together nature of this essay's cinematography, and that's because this essay was low-budget and cobbled together. You may have perceived an aura of positivity throughout. I've grown so much from where I was, and yet there's an infinite amount of work ahead of me. Right now, I get home from work, and to ensure that I can do so healthily again the next day, I've got about 4 hours left, probably one of which is predestined for the kitchen. I've had to make a lot of sacrifices and choose what matters most to ensure passion projects like this can even exist. I put hobbyist baker on my resume, and I haven't even done that in months. If I want to unwind, maybe play some League with friends or go to a party, I probably won't even have time left to practice my French, de-rust my math skills, or relearn music production on updated software. If there's a lapse in my wellness, a scratch in my bark that I am most deliberately channeling my effort towards right now, it's this. My heart's desire is enacted and expressed in baby steps, independent and estranged from the supportive, structured environment I was once accustomed to. Adapting to a highly intentional time management regimen has its rewards, but I can't help feel like I could be managing my time differently. For those among us unlucky enough to remain standing where once we were seated into subpar, maybe desolate soil, despite our best efforts, we rely on external supplemental nourishment. I don't have the freedom to uproot my life and walk into a different one. I have to make the best hand with the cards I have. I've written this essay prompted by the CIBC Stay Healthy competition, hoping to find a generous soul with fertilizer to share. A scholarship, in layman's terms, would afford me the opportunity to reach for my educational aspirations with confidence, the confidence to avoid a condemned life of insurmountable debt, the confidence to once again develop my creative skills and academic urges from within an environment of diligence and cooperation, to open the door to yet more like-minded companions, to esteemed resources, libraries, studios, and equipment. School is no longer an inexorable truth of life for all my memory holds. I know what life without it looks like, and I miss it. I have the great privilege of a career path that bestows practical experience, but at the detriment of expansion. Even when I am, like now, at school, I feel meaningful development happens only in this one specialty. I miss how personal development, social development, and professional development used to be one in the same, but since I graduated, it's been a choice, a three-ball juggling act. I optimistically imagine, as I have today, a tomorrow in which these three converge again, separate yet connected as if one organism within me, my ideal state of wellness. Kind of like a tree. Gigantic big thanks to anybody who's sticking around by the end of this video, or honestly sticking around in general. I know it's been like almost a year since I've released anything on this channel. Anybody who's patient enough to stick around and click on that notification, definitely lots of love going out. Big shout outs to Diesel Moore. All my friends are saying Diesel Moore deserves a shout out in this next video. Very, very true. My account got hacked about a month ago now, and he shot me an Instagram message within like 30 minutes to let me get it back under control. We're all good now. I didn't think I would have a video ready by the end of this month, but here we are. Felt inspired enough to bring this out. I hope it's been enjoyable. I've never really written or released anything this personal before, so definitely tell me what you think in the comments. Hit that like button if you enjoyed, hit the sub button if you're new here, and guys, keep on telling cool stories.
You gotta have a moment out of context completely, all audio mutes out, and it's just this. You know what I'm saying?